Hello and welcome to another edition of Back to Beverly, where we bring the best and brightest of Beverly back to talk about days when they were here at school. I'm Dylan Curtis, your host, and I'd like to welcome my guest today, the Honorable Judge Lisa Hart Cole of the Superior Court of Los Angeles County. Thanks for joining me, Judge.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that you graduated class of 1973. What was special about those 4 years here at Beverly?
I should probably preface this with the fact that I was a complete nerd in high school, a description I think still applies according to my daughter. So my years were a little different. I think that what was great and special about school was the friends that you make, and actually some of the classes that I took I really enjoyed.
Definitely, that's still in effect today, the friends and the classes. What kind of student were you at Beverly?
I was probably a pretty good student, I would say. I took some good classes. I took in like history and English, some AP classes. I was pretty miserable in math. Without my best friend, I don't think I could have gotten through advanced algebra trig. But I took all the classes I'm sure you take, except your classes are probably much harder now.
I don't know about that. What's your opinion about the state of education today? Do you think students are better off or worse than they were when you were here?
Well, you guys all have tools that we never had. I mean, to be able to Google something and come up with a answer to a question so rapidly is amazing. If we wanted to look up a magazine article on an issue that interested us, we would have to go to the library into this huge book which had a list of periodicals, and it was virtually impossible and took many, many hours. So to the extent that you have such a rapid influx of information at all times, I think that makes you a smarter person right then, because you're not wasting so much time. On the other hand, there's a great value to books, and I still love to read, and I developed my reading when I was in high school. So I think that, that's my phone. So I think that you do miss that by having the internet so accessible and ready for you.
That's a good point. What were your favorite classes, teachers? What impact do you think they had on you? And do you remain in contact with any of them today?
You know, I hate to say it, probably most of my teachers are gone, like not living anymore. My favorite teacher was probably a history professor named Mr. Acapenti, and he was known to be the hardest, meanest guy. He had a class called Culture Vulture within the AP European History. I don't know if anybody's told you about that yet.
I haven't heard about that. First time I hear of it, though.
It was a really rough, rigorous course of artists and philosophers, and you just really learned very rapidly maybe the history of 200 or 300 years. And he, I think, is dead. And also had a great math teacher, but again, my hardest teacher, Kathy Layton, and I don't keep in contact with her, but she was a great teacher.
That's great to hear. I have some great teachers that I enjoy this year, as well as my previous 2 years. So.
And aren't they usually the hardest teachers, right?
Usually the hardest, very
Yeah.
true. What did you enjoy most about Beverly, or the least?
I think what I enjoyed most probably were my friends in the classes. I'm still really good friends with my best friend at the time, and she's still my dearest friend. So that's obviously a high point. And the classes, for example, I still keep some French from Monsieur Jacquard when I took French from him, and I can still speak and understand French. My background in history from Mr. Acapenti and other teachers really stayed with me for the years and developed an understanding to a lot of other things as well. So those kinds of things really do, you don't think they're going to, but actually they do.
Right. You said that you're still close with your best friend in high school. Were there any others you're still close with? Were there any celebrities in your class, ahead of you, behind you in school?
Well, the most famous person in our class is your dad, obviously, Robbie Curtis. He was the star basketball player. I didn't know him, being a nerd, of course, but he was very popular. And Sam Simon, who started the Simpsons, is probably the most famous member of our class. But we've had a lot of pretty successful people who've been very successful in business and in law.
It's interesting that you go to high school with them, and then down the road you learn that they're so successful. Started The Simpsons. I know there's Joel Cerno, who began 24 on Fox also, so it's interesting.
Yeah, Joel Cerno actually was a very good friend of my husband's in school.
What activities were you involved in at Beverly, such as clubs or sports?
There used to be a club, I doubt it still exists, called the Adelphia Club. Is that still here?
I don't know. I haven't heard of it.
It was, I don't know, like a little honors club for girls, a little booster club, and Girls League was a big thing. I don't think you have that anymore either, right?
I don't think so.
This is really sad. My biggest activity was debate. I was a major debater. I wasn't particularly successful. I mean, I did have my share of victories, but I wasn't a state debater, but that was my #1 activity. Spent a lot of time in that debate room. You do still have debate, right?
I do believe we have debate here at the high school.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Did you know that in high school that you wanted to follow a career path in the practice of law? Did you have any other dreams?
You know, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I think from the time I was an early teen, and was pretty directed in that path. I liked debate. When I went to law school, I was very active in mock trial. I think I knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And everything was a stepping stone. I may not have envisaged when I was in high school being a judge, obviously, but I did feel that that was a path I was pretty interested in. It was not possible for me to be a doctor, given my math and science skills, that's for sure.
You're married to a very successful criminal attorney and a fellow Norman. What's the conversation like around the dinner table?
Well, you've been there. You know what it's like. We talk a lot about the law. I think our children are very sophisticated in legal issues. They know about the 3 strikes law, a lot of criminal cases we run by them. I'll ask my kids for their opinion on cases that I have and what I should do in certain circumstances, because I do want to hear somebody else's viewpoint who's not associated with the law. We are very legally oriented in our house. So it really does invade every aspect, I have to say.
Do you think Beverly prepared you for college or your life in general?
In maybe a roundabout way, I would say. I think that high school is certainly a rite of passage. And all of the drama that goes on in high school, those feelings of insecurity and feelings of victory and all those weird chemical things that happen to you in high school are very important for your development later on. And it sounds like it's a pat thing to say, but it's something you got to get through, and once you get through it, you're a better person at the other end. Obviously, you need to go to high school to go to college. Did it help me in my academic career in college? You know, somewhat. I would say college was very different for me than high school. It's definitely ratcheted up much higher. AP classes in high school, for me, were not similar to the college courses that I took in similar areas.
That's interesting because many of the kids taking AP classes today think that it's going to be somewhat like what a college course is, and you say it's not. So it's interesting to get someone who's been to college point of view.
Well, I think the difference is the expectations are far greater. I mean, a high school teacher can be forgiving if you're sick, and we'll give you your homework and maybe we'll take a test late, but it's very hard to go to a Nobel Prize winning author or historian and tell him that you didn't really feel so good, so you can't take the test today. It doesn't really translate as well in the college situation.
That's a good point. My friends and I are getting close to deciding what colleges we may want to attend. Could you offer us any advice as to what colleges?
Well, I went to Berkeley for undergraduate and Hastings for law school because financially that was what my parents could afford. And in those days, UCs were very, very inexpensive as compared to private colleges. But I think that in general, it's best to choose a college not for the name or for the notoriety, but where you think you're going to feel comfortable. Berkeley's a huge school, for example. It's ginormous, really, with 30,000 students, undergraduate and graduate. As a freshman, your classes are survey classes, meaning you'll have 400 kids in a class.
Wow.
You can go to a private school and have much more contact with your professors. And socially, it's harder. If you're one of